agreement, a percentage-based contract with each other, and every time we asked for accounting, there was a problem. You never wanted to give nobody accounting. You don't want to show us the real numbers from the deals and all of this other. And it's like, all right, fam, what are we doing? Because again, we have this contract, and if you're not going to honor this contract, like you said in front of other people, then it's like, this shit ain't going to work. It's not going to work. And if you don't, like I said, if respect ain't there, I'm not there.
I like that. If respect not there, yeah, I like that. If respect not there, I'm not there. Yeah, now that's big. That's big. I listened to the whole thing today myself. I contribute to the creators. I paid the $2, you know, to listen in. But yeah, I think it's an interesting dynamic, right? And I will speak to the parts that I felt were super important across the board, right? I think what they're asking for is very reasonable. Mm-hmm. Right. Now, there is a difference in stories, so you don't know what is what.
Right.
But from what it appears on this Rory and Mal episode or video, they have a timeline for about 7 years that they have addressed, that they addressed in the video about all of the things that have happened and how things have come together. So the one part that I want to kind of like break down a little bit is the fact that they say, accounting is under our expense. And I feel like that's something that's probably going to go over a lot of people's heads, but it's so critical. What they mean by that is that the accounting is something that was taken out of their profit, right? Or is an expense on their balance sheet before they got paid. So if I'm paying for this service as a part of our agreement and our partnership, I have the right to utilize it, right? And see what's happening. That's one. The second part of it, and again, according to what they're saying, if that's the agreement, a percentage of profits, then absolutely. For me to confirm that this is the correct number on profit, I need to review the expenses, or I need to review, again, the accounting. So that's a big component there that I think is so critical. It's one thing, and it's typical in some agreements, by the way, that the two parties coming together will say, you are welcome to have your own accounting, meaning that I have my accounting, you have your accounting, and share numbers regularly because, again, it's what you're getting paid on. So that's the first part that I listen to, and I'm like, okay, logically, this makes sense, right. And I can see why this is a concern for them, and I can see why also it looks a bit skeptical from the other end. It's like, okay, hold up. Why are you being so stingy around something that's just common practice? So that's the first part that really stuck out to me. And I said, okay, this is a big part here that people need to pay attention to, that they were responsible for the accounting, meaning that it got paid out of their expenses or profits or the things that stuck out. But, and then listening to kind of just the exchange, it seemed like the respect factor was a big thing, that there were multiple kind of like outrages toward them to not speak on anything related to the podcast outside of all three of them being present.
Right.
But at the same time, there are some, like, for example, the instant when they say that Joe's manager was the one who called, and it's a desire to grow something. So I don't want to get into those specifics, but there are plenty of times, for example, where you and I may have dialogue about how to grow a portion of the business that we're in. Now, not every owner is involved in those dialogues, but I can only just imagine how much more difficult it would be if every single conversation we were having about the context of growing the business had to wait until everyone was present. Mm-hmm. A lot of things wouldn't move. So it's like a broken thinking or an idea that you gotta control everything and everyone when people's intentions are to help you grow.
Right.
You know, like they want to come back and help you grow. So if you're not even going to allow me that, I can understand why the respect factor is so big and to say, okay, I'm out. Like, I don't care about the money. I don't care about any of these things. And listening to them, they're all very, pretty much, like, they're pretty self-aware. Like, they're honest about, like, oh, I know I didn't come in here with a big personality or a huge audience. I know what I contributed to, what I contributed with, but I also know what's mine. So those are the things that comes to mind, Nick, from that concept, and I can see why the conversation is being had. But I do like the move overall for them to put it behind a paywall, like in response to what happened.
Yeah. So let me start there, where from a branding and business side of how they handle content, just the move alone, what both parties did was genius. They knew that the blogs, the podcast, media people were going to be all on this, right? From either side, from Joe's side or Mal and Rory's side. So the fact that, and it's funny because Joe was trying to say, yeah, it didn't sound so, it didn't sound like for the public. So let me put it behind the paywall, and was like shocked that people bootlegged it. Sir, stop. Stop. You knew exactly what you were doing, and you might as well get some coins for them fishing for the information. I'm not knocking it, okay? I think it's genius that you take content that people are going to be super tuned in for, and you put it behind Patreon so they can see it, hear it, all that great stuff. Cool. And especially for Rory and Mal, well, if you're going to get extra coins for you dissing us or speaking on our own behalf and things like that, we might as well do the same thing, right? So from monetizing content wise, I think both parties are very genius, right? Now, from this particular clip where, in response of Joe saying that they were salary, and he's saying, nah, we're profit partner, like profit share partners, right? What's the proper thing? Is that it? These
profit
all these
partners, yeah. Profit
yeah,
partners
all these business words. I don't know. They get a percentage off of all the profits, right? And how they explained it was, look, before it was just having conversations, all that great stuff. Then we started seeing deals come in, and it only made sense to put a general contract that's saying, yo, we get a percentage of all the deals that come through, right? Not the overall of Joe Budden, the network, Joe Budden TV, Joe Budden, the podcast, not overall, but as we are here, based off the deals that come in, I get a percentage. Now, I don't know if this is true or false. I'm not necessarily taking sides or anything like that. What I'm saying is that makes sense, right? Even to, like with me and Moose, right? It only makes sense as long as we do this together. If anything comes in, we both get a piece of it. I'm not going to be like, put Moose on salary. No, it's Nicky and Moose. It doesn't make sense, right? Now, my confusion, not confusion, but like, I could see maybe where there was a protection thing, and where Joe may have a valid point of, this is the Joe Budden Podcast, right? So though you are here, and though you may have helped, right? This is the Joe Budden Podcast. So I do owe you something. I don't owe you all those things. He may feel that way, right? My whole thing is, this is a scary moment for people who do business with friends. This is a scary moment, and I think I'm so attached to this situation because we've covered it here as far as their whole, like, their whole rise recently with the Spotify deal and the exclusivity, and then coming out of Spotify and the ownership and making deals with Cash App and then Patreon and everything, creating the network. It seemed as if, from outside looking in, as if everything was on an up and up for just 3-4 friends, because we have to think about Parks, right? 3-4 friends that had a conversation and created a whole empire, right? So to see it go this public and this ugly as it has been, right? It could only concern people who are in business with friends. Like, yo, how do you, if on friendship level, our word is everything, right? The second money comes involved, does that go away? Do I instantly have to give a contract? I don't understand this. Like, this doesn't make any kind of sense, right? And it's crazy because I feel for Mal and Rory, because they were like, yo, I put my friend, I thought this was on some friend stuff, right? And we saw a bunch of red flags and, kind of brushed it aside, because we always assumed that our friend would take care of us. Mm-hmm. And I know, and I'm not going to get transparent, I'm telling you this, I'm not going to, but I know we've had conversations where we assume people are going to take care of us based off what we've done, right? Is it safe? I don't know, safe to say, but is it safe to say that when there's business involved, regardless of how strong the friendship is, there has to be some type of paperwork that just covers things? Like, because I know I hate paperwork. I'm not a fan of it. I think it's almost like an insult, as if it's like, yo, you don't, when it comes to friends. Now, other people could get this work, right? Like, please sign this. Here you go. Boom. No problem. Make sure I get my percentage. We're all good. But then if it's friends, I'm like, I don't even like giving NDAs. I'm like, no, you have trust. And it's bit me a few times. I know this for sure, that I didn't have certain paperwork in play. It's bit me. And the cool thing is I'm okay with that, right? Because I think deep down, and I don't know if it's my New York ways or whatever it is, like, I know I stayed true to what was supposed to be delivered, right? I did my part, and what I said was true. So when thinking about this, like, back to the question that I had, is it almost as if there has to be, like, we can't talk unless there's paperwork involved?
Yeah. And I don't want to use the word paperwork, because I think like many people like you or like yourself don't necessarily like paperwork. It just feels like, whoa, that's not how friends get down.
Yep.
So maybe it's not paperwork, but it's just a matter of keeping record of what's what. Like, what are we agreeing to? Mm-hmm. And as much as possible, let's make sure that we're agreeing and on the same page before the money comes or before anything comes, because that typically changes the dynamic of a relationship. So if when listening to their video today, they talk about a part in their conversation when they would say, oh, imagine if we did this and we were able to grow the show to make this amount, to generate this number.
Yeah.
And I believe Rory was saying that Joe's response to that was, well, I wouldn't give you guys that percentage on that number. Right. So it's like, oh, okay, well, that changes things, right? Yeah. Now, especially if there's a contract already in place. Mm-hmm. So more importantly, for those of you out there who are uncomfortable around the conversation of paperwork, especially in a partnership with your friends, because you feel like, wait, friends and family shouldn't rock like that. We'll always have each other's back. Mm-hmm. Just keep record, even of the conversation. I don't care if it's a voice memo, something, right? Have record of it so that it can be at least honored. Mm-hmm. And that's the part that I think is most important here, Nix, because there are times, and you may have heard it, where people say, well, I don't even care about the contract. I'm going to dishonor the contract. And that's just unfortunate, right? Like, you hope and pray that you won't be in business with people like that. But yeah, there's that part of it which is super important to have record of things, because it does change when people start adding up and doing the numbers and they feel that they've contributed more than the other person. They try and go back on their words. Like, no, it doesn't make sense to do that. Like, as I do the numbers now, it doesn't pay out.
I'm still struggling. I'm still struggling, just because it's like, how do I put this? I'm trying not to get too transparent. Praise God, we have an after show. Shout out to when that comes out. You're really going to get some interesting thoughts from me about this one. But I struggle with this even when you say that, because it's like, how do we know until money's involved how a person will honor word or contract? Like, how will we? Because I had to handle that. Like, I had to see, and no, I'm not talking about a Nicky and Moose situation. So before anybody, no, okay, no. Because I feel like some people, I feel like we're gonna get big and people are gonna clip this and be like, "Oh, Nicky was talking." No, all right. But I know I was in a situation where growing something from the ground up, and then when the first huge amount of money that came through, you clearly saw what another person did that didn't favor equality, didn't favor even fairness in certain payouts. And I didn't know. Now, just like how Rory and Mal said, there were certain red flags, right? But because you're friends, you're like, it'll make sense, nothing really serious could happen. You know what? Take this here, pay this toll here. What? Okay, fine, cool, right? Mm-hmm. But then when it came to a whole guap, it was like, okay. I see how we and I ate that. I never asked for, I never made it such a super huge deal or anything like that. But, well, semi did. But, whatever. I can't hide my emotions. Well, I kind of did. Yeah, I kind of did. But I wouldn't have known that until money circles in. So is there a way to avoid that? Because I don't think they would have known that. And even I wrote it down as, a podcast, and maybe I need to put more respect on podcasting, right? Because clearly Joe Budden created a whole empire off of it. But I'm like, podcasting is talking to your friends on a public level, right? Like, it shouldn't be this deep. It shouldn't be to where the greediness of money comes in, because at the end of the day, you're having conversations with your friend, right? And I'm like, I'm legitly having conversations with my best friend. If a deal comes in, I made it very clear from the very jump, we're part of this together, right? Mm-hmm. Regardless if it was called the Moose Show, the Nicky Podcast, whatever, we're in this together. What I did respect, right, was that in that particular response, they were like, I'm not trying to get half or any of like the whole IP. That's his name. Like Joe Budden, that's his name. Give me the percentage you said you were going to give me. That's all. I'm not asking for more. But when I'm seeing certain shows sell out and I'm still getting the same payout as if it was 100,000 people in there, but there's 3,000-4,000 people over here, I'm still getting the same payout. Something does not add up, but that's my man's in them. It will work out. So for me, I'm like, I don't think you truly understand until money is in play.
Yeah. Yeah, you might see signs of it. You might see signs of it because it is available in little things. But I think what most people do is they downplay. Oh, they don't mean that. Oh, they just joking. I know this is different. But you see it in little things, and they make their way into bigger things when the money grows or when the money multiplies. But the leadership lesson here is this concept of control. You know, like I think when you start finding yourself going into the heights or the depths of manipulation to really control certain things or make sure that things don't go outside of your power, you got to be mindful of that, because I understand how that may make you feel like, man, I can never be defeated or I can never be removed from my position. But to your point, if you think about it, it's not like they could overthrow him if his name is on the network or his name is on the show. Like, it's not going to, oh yeah, we just fired Joe. He's no longer, sorry, y'all, it's still going to be the Joe Budden Podcast without Joe, though. It's like, that's not even a thing. It couldn't happen. It couldn't happen. But I think it's a lesson for leaders to like really be mindful of that. When you find yourself going to the depths of manipulation to have complete control over something, that's one of the things that actually stops its growth. It can no longer grow beyond what you're building it out to be, because now you can't be in certain places that your craft or your art needs to be. All right, you got to kind of let it go beyond you a little bit. So, yeah, it's I do think it's the right thing to do to end it, though. After listening to both sides, and I know, of course, they're kind of like having at it just because it's content, and it's like, oh, we got eyes on us right now. Let's just go ahead and let it loose. Yeah. But I do think the right thing to do is to end it. It just doesn't make sense for it to carry on.